approval rating for Biden basically looks like a Boeing plane trying to land. I mean,
It's
that
at
is
37.4.
People are screaming on the plane. They were hoping this was like landslide. They're like, all we got to do is just convict this guy, keep throwing shit. All we got to do is convict it, and that's it. We win. And that has not materialized.
This is an open mouth of problems for them. I mean, the disapprove is now at 50, almost 57%. Approval's at 30. He's an incumbent president running for re-election.
4 lives of free people are now free again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're mad about it.
Yeah.
They're
They're
big mad.
about it.
There is no operation that Israel can do to recover hostages that they would accept as the correct tactic. And there's no horrific brutality that Hamas could do that they would condemn.
I said years ago, every last journo to Gitmo, and I was right.
You called it.
But there are a couple moments in my political life where I look around and go like, I was not prepared for us to be on such different pages.
Yeah.
And this was one of them where it seems very obvious we should be celebrating. 2020, it was like, hey, ooh, riots are bad, right? Nope. Riots are good.
Yeah.
We are 2 steps away from dudes riding around DC in Toyota Helixes, shooting AK-47s into the air.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because, as you always say, like I am soft on terror.
Yes.
Like I'm the soft on terror voice of the Ruthless Variety.
Yes, but you're now
But now,
harder.
like I feel like I want to start like a podcast with Dick Cheney and like extraordinarily rendition some people.
A new study reports that credit card rewards provide a lifeline for working class Americans. Rewards like cash back empower low and middle income families to pay for the rising price of groceries and gas. So why are DC politicians partnering with corporate megastores to steal cash back from families during skyrocketing inflation? The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill takes billions from American families, lining corporate pockets instead. Protect our credit card rewards lifeline. Tell DC politicians to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. Learn more at electronicpaymentscoalition.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to another exciting week here on the Ruthless Variety program. My name is Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug. Mary Katharine Ham joins us in
Special
the middle
guest.
of this.
Hello, everyone.
And Michael Duncan, as well as John Ashbrook, as always, left to right across your radio dial. Thanks for joining us. We got a big week, got a bunch of stuff going on. Fun times.
Yeah.
Fun times.
I mean, there's a lot of news to cover. First of all, though, for all our folks who are watching on YouTube, do remember to subscribe. It's free. Just click that button, subscribe, and make sure you don't miss out on any of this because we got a lot. We got a lot this week.
We do have a lot this week. Everybody have a nice weekend. You know, you start getting the summer situation where you can kind of like cavort on the weekends, even those of us
actually
with
enjoy
kids.
your time instead of
Yeah. Yeah, did we enjoy it?
I'm loving it.
Terrific.
This is my very wholesome trait. I love spending time with my kids when they're home for summer. I'm like, come on down. Mama's got plans. We're going to goof off. We're going to play hooky. Mom is sometimes. And that's what we're doing. And by the way, that's how you avoid iPad parenting. You got to put in the time.
That's right.
You got to do stuff.
Yeah.
You
The
make
wisdom.
plans.
The wisdom.
I had an incredible Sunday.
Well, I know you had like 1,000 beers.
I did. Well, so, I mean, that's not what I did first. But so
Woke up and got started.
I woke up very early, and Joey, our 4-year-old, came down super early. And so I knew I was like, I had to lock in. Like,
Yeah.
this was going to be a long day. I mean, we did everything. Legos, which he also has this new thing now where he's like, no, Daddy, don't help me, which really like hurts you in the heart a little bit.
Oh.
It's a little tough because like
Yeah.
we've done a lot of Legos.
And well, and then he
together.
builds it wrong.
He does build it wrong, and then I get upset.
That is a real parenting lesson to
It
just
is.
let go.
You
in
got to
those
let go.
moments.
You really got to let go when he's getting it wrong, and it's like, no, you just got to follow the instructions. Anyway, so we get past that, we have breakfast and yada yada yada, and we get to like midday, and I was like, man, I'm bored. I got to start posting.
You started like heavy drinking.
Well, I know I didn't start heavy drinking. I had a pop, and I decided I was going to make a lot of terrorists mad online.
Oh.
Great
So you
pastime.
you just go straight to X.
Went straight to X and was like, let's cause problems.
Yeah, oh yeah, I love that.
And I started making fun of all these people who are like, oh no, Israel freed hostages. That's bad. And so I just started posting and then cracked some beers and then hung out with my son in the backyard as he like played in the pool and everything. And it was just a perfect day. Absolutely perfect day.
Well, it's a good transition because there's a lot of us that observed over the weekend a terrorist sort of retrieval. IDF managed to rescue some hostages long held since October 7. All in all, from a world perspective, terrific news. And not necessarily what you saw from the left.
Insanity.
Online, right? Best, I think, illustrated by our old friends at the douche pod.
The Pod Bros.
Pod Bros.
Yeah.
This is like the people that they say are like the analog to what it is that we do. It's nothing near that because they're always angry and they try to follow the left wherever it goes, even when they know better. Graphic 1, please. So this is a tweet from Tommy Vietor, who's quote tweeting Barak Ravid, who says Israel rescued 4 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. My report on Axios. He says amazing news.
Yeah.
What a remarkably normal human reaction to hostages who have been held since October 7 in the worst possible conditions and were reprieved.
No, you can't do that anymore, though. You're not allowed to celebrate hostages going home.
If you notice down at the bottom of that tweet, this post has been deleted.
He deleted that?
deleted it.
Just
Deleted.
saying amazing news? What's
Well,
still controversial
well,
about
it turns
that?
out on the left,
Very controversial.
Yeah,
as
that's way
we've-
too right wing. That's right wing terror. Right there.
as we've said, Hamas is a constituency of today's Democratic Party. Poor Tommy, he just got let in on this a little late.
Well, no, they have to fix the press release situation over there because remember, San Francisco City Hall got caught flat-footed when suddenly the appeal to heaven
Oh, that's right.
flag became
Yes.
That's
bad,
right.
bad, and there can be no other historical reason for having it flying ever.
Well, it's a call to arms for the
Like,
the-
how is Tommy Vitor and San Francisco City Hall not getting the announcements
Yeah.
quick enough?
Well, that's the thing is
Right.
like every single day, if you're, in the radical left in America, like the rules change. Like every morning, they need a 6 a.m. email to go to everyone and be like, hey, here are the new rules. You know?
We thought about last night. We got a little
Yeah.
crazier, and this is what we're up to. now.
Flags are racist and terrorism is good today. So please.
Well, we're going to cover all of that. Believe me, we're going to get granular on it because, as we've said, Hamas is a constituency of the Democratic Party. You will see that in Technicolor here over the next 15 minutes. And then further on in the show, we're going to be talking about Biden, his numbers, which are not terrific.
No.
They're not terrific.
No, they're actually fucking horrific.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet from Nate Silver that he tied his worst approval rating ever today. So,
And just recall, I mean, the whole backdrop to that is that they thought that the pathway of least resistance was to convict Donald Trump of a felony, and then it was all smooth sailing.
Game changer.
Ooh,
Yeah.
oof, it certainly doesn't look like it by the polls anyway. We've got some variety. And we're going to talk about that, that juiced up games thing.
Enhanced games.
Yeah, the enhanced games thing.
Always
that you're
love
all
news about that.
You love that stuff.
Huge fan. Huge fan.
So all of that with Mary Katharine Ham coming back right after this.
Hey folks, my friends at Americans for Prosperity are again on the front lines fighting against the border crisis. It's clear the politicians aren't going to solve this on their own. It's going to take good old-fashioned grassroots activism, and that's what AFP specializes in. Americans for Prosperity Foundation has taken hundreds of concerned citizens to see the border for themselves, turning them into informed activists. And Americans for Prosperity knows just what we need: more border agents, more walls, and more technology. That's what makes Americans for Prosperity unique. They do the tough work of organizing and mobilizing everyday Americans to make a difference. In fact, they just announced a major campaign to hold Biden and his allies accountable for the crisis at the border. Learn more at secureborder.secureamerica.com. That's secureborder.secureamerica.com.
Okay, so the Hamas Caucus. It turns out they're not happy. They're not happy that
There was some good news, and so they are not happy.
So, but it gets weirder and weirder. This whole story has to be heard to be believed. And I listen, if you're anything like me, you're taking kids to baseball games and soccer games and you're doing stuff, you may have seen the headlines, but like delving into this a little bit is worth your time. Believe me. It turns out a Palestinian journalist, quote unquote, had held the Israeli hostages in his home. So according to the JewishInsider.com, a Palestinian journalist and his family had held 3 hostages captive in their home in the Gaza Strip until rescue Saturday morning, the Israeli Defense Forces said on Sunday. Following the completion of IDF and ISA examinations and reports on the subject, it can be confirmed that Abdullah Abjamal, I think that's right, was an operative in the Hamas terrorist organization who held hostages.
Can I say I was right when I said
every last
I said years ago, every last journo to Gitmo, and I was right.
You called it.
I tried warning everybody. We wouldn't have these problems today.
All 4 hostages were taken from the Nova Music Festival on October 7. Al-Jamal.
Yeah, the pronunciation doesn't matter. Terrorist.
Yeah, terrorists. His father and wife were killed during the IDF operation, which immediately, I don't know if this is maybe what prompted you to engage in your course of consumption of like 12, 24 beers on Sunday. The left was sort of like, oh my gosh, this journalist has been killed.
Well, so there's this interesting thing when it comes to commentary around the Gaza war or Israel in general, and that is people purporting to be journalists who actually just don't believe that Israel should exist as a country.
Yeah.
And they don't say that, and it colors all of their commentary. Like, there is no operation that Israel can do to recover hostages that they would accept as the correct tactic, and there's no horrific brutality that Hamas could do that they would condemn. It just becomes this tit for tat thing of like, we're going to play Monday morning quarterback about it, like how Israel should conduct itself in getting back innocent people that were raped and brutally assaulted and taken from a concert.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Like that's the way that they operate.
Yeah.
All the rules are mandatory for Israel and
Right.
optional for Hamas.
Yeah.
In the view of many, many, many journalists and leftists. But I repeat myself.
What's wild to me is that the mainstream media will bend over backwards to preserve the fiction that these terrorists are actually journalists. And
why even label it? Like, if you're holding an Israeli hostage since October 7, knowing the events of October 7, and knowing the ensuing war that has occurred, the label isn't journalist anymore.
That's the thing. It's like saying, well, on 9/11, those weren't hijackers. They were training pilots.
Right?
No, they were terrorists.
But what's wild to me is that they will literally, this is mainstream media, they'll bend over backwards to pretend that these people are journalists. And then when there's a conservative who asks a question, they're like, oh no, this person is a rabble-rouser.
Out of bounds.
2012. Can I just take you guys back to 2012? I know MK will remember this. You guys will remember this. This guy, Neil Munro, had the temerity to ask Obama a question at a press conference, and Tommy Vietor, among other White House staffers, were just dunking on him, saying, how dare this rabble-rouser interrupt Obama's press conference to simply ask a question. He was a conservative. Think about that guy, Simon. I can't think of his last name. The Africa News Today.
Ateba?
Yeah. Think about how long he's tried to ask a question of this White House, never allowed to ask, and then all of a sudden these like New York Times profile pieces materialize about how he's like a gadfly. So the left protects these terrorists and they attack anybody who holds a Democrat accountable. I think dichotomy.
This is the like end point of the movement within journalism, that activism comes first. When Columbia School of Journalism is like, can you actually be unbiased about the news? It's gone full activism. So when they see this terrorist, they're like, oh, that's activism. So we like activism.
Yeah.
So he's a journalist.
Well, the journalism of this, daring raid to free these hostages becomes a footnote to the larger discourse that these quote-unquote journalists want to propagate, and that is well, was it worth the cost? There
Was it
deaths,
worth the cost?
the deaths that were involved in this raid, and I'm sure all of these numbers are coming from Hamas, a terrorist organization that runs Gaza. So who the hell knows how many people were actually killed in these raids? But why are those deaths laid at the foot of the people freeing the innocent hostages and not at the feet of the terrorist organization that runs Gaza? Nobody thinks of that. And these quote unquote journalists will say, at what cost? And it's well, it's a fucking cost Hamas is willing to pay.
Yeah.
They're certainly happy to have their citizens killed, to hold on to innocent people for some quote unquote leverage so they can try to empty the jails of Israel full of terrorists. By the way, when we had Ari Harrow from Israel, who used to be chief of staff to Netanyahu, he came in and he told the story about when they did a quote unquote hostage exchange.
The price they were willing to pay.
And they for an IDF soldier, they gave up 1,000 terrorists that were in Israeli jails. And one of those guys planned October 7th.
Yeah.
So maybe Israel has woken up to the idea that, trading innocent civilians for terrorists is not a good fucking trade with a terrorist organization that runs Gaza.
Well, and there's also a little life hack that is simple. If you would like to avoid a military raid of daring do to have civilians rescued from in the midst of other civilians that you have kept there, don't kidnap the civilians and keep them among civilians as human shields.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Journalism pro tip: do not keep hostages in your basement.
Do not be the hostage taker or keeper.
But the other insane thing that came out from this story is it said that this guy was a contributor to the Palestine Chronicle.
Yeah, that's got to be a reputable publication.
It's a 501c3. It's a left-wing dark money group. Dude. So they're getting tax benefits.
Dude.
That's our government.
American nonprofit over here.
But on June 3rd, he published an article with the headline, "My house will always be open. Stories from the Gaza siege."
Come on.
Come on.
Open to Hamas if they want to have some innocent civilians there.
I mean,
it's just you're a terrorist. At that point, you're just a terrorist.
My house will always be open, open to house the hot. I mean, they're reading you can just see Hamas waking up in the morning, folding up the newspaper and being like, "Hey, this guy says his house is open. Maybe we should take those 4 people over there. I mean, we got running out of room." I mean, that's basically what he's saying.
And that's the thing is the brazenness of these people and the shamelessness is because they know they've got cover. They have college students across this country. They have the entire Democratic Party who has their back, no matter what kind of insane, fucked up shit that they do. And we saw the most horrific scenes humanity is capable of on this day.
Yes.
Perpetrated on men, women, and children. And even after that, the left refuses to condemn these people.
That's what's so wild about it. I mean, I remember waking up early in the morning on October the 7th. It was a Saturday morning. And you open up your Twitter account, and it's just like murder after murder after murder. And then just last Saturday, June 8th, you open up your Twitter account. It's like this joyous reunion of a girl and her father. And all I was thinking of was like, hey, honey, I showed my wife. I wanted to show my daughters. This is great news. This is the greatest thing that ever happened. And just an hour later, the left starts seizing on it as if it's the wrong thing to do.
No,
and
it was so beautiful to watch these reunions and to watch the people in the streets of Israel celebrate and to see everyone come together in that way. It's like, I have spent my life surrounded by liberals, and I've always thought differently from them. But there are a couple moments in my political life where I look around and go I was not prepared for us to be on such different pages. Yeah. And this was one of them where it seems very obvious we should be celebrating. Another one was when I was on a panel. I was like, oh, look, guys, fellow CNN panelists, the president is not a Russian plant, it turns out.
Yeah, that's good
We
news.
did this whole investigation thing, and I feel pretty good about that. 2020, it was like, hey, ooh, riots are bad, right? Nope, riots are good.
Yeah.
And these moments I find unsettling because particularly this is Noah gets to reunite with her mother who's dying of cancer. These 3 men would never have been let out in any deal. Not that Hamas is ready to make any deals because they haven't taken any deals, you might have noticed.
Right.
They weren't going to make it out unless they were rescued.
Yeah.
4 lives of free people are now free again. Mm-hmm. And they're mad about it.
Yeah.
They're big
mad about it. And it ties into everything else we're talking about.
I think that means they're the bad guys.
Well, I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty clear. But very quickly mobilizing upon that sentiment, They decided to do a little damage in Washington, D.C. You know, I mean, what's
That's like
anxiety without
par
being
for the
able to
course at this point.
throw a couple of things at some cops and make things happen. We're going to play a couple of clips. Let's get clip 1, Spaghettis, if you wouldn't mind. Taking a look, here's a park police officer who is getting bombarded by bottles and...
What was that? Did they throw a rock first?
Oh,
I mean, that's a mostly peaceful bombardment.
it's
Yeah.
And look at this lady with the
I mean,
situation going there.
that's the thing is like 2020 normalized this completely. You know, when you had an entire summer of where the Department of Health, what was it, the NIH is like, well, actually, you can't catch COVID if you're out protesting for George Floyd. You know, like at that point, the dam had broken and all reason was thrown out. When Tom Cotton like puts out an opinion being like, hey, we got riots, maybe mobilize the National Guard. People at the New York Times get fired for allowing that to be published.
For our audio only listeners, I want to point out there in that clip that we just played, like it's not like this is a cop with a riot shield and a helmet on. It's a park ranger.
Right.
This is like pelting a Mountie, you know, with cans and stuff. Like I'm sure he's the nicest guy. He literally just works for the Park Service.
Yeah,
and he's standing in front of the defaced
Right.
Lafayette
Right.
statue.
He wasn't
Just
being
like
aggressive
graffiti all
or
over
anything.
it.
He's just sitting there.
Exactly. And the trust fund libs are Jan Sixing the guy.
Right.
He looks like he was just saying, yeah, boo boo, like 5 minutes ago.
It seemed like a Yogi the Bear type too.
Just trying to protect a picnic basket.
All right, so clip 2. Let's take a look at how this thing goes a little further. Oh, interesting. Jihad of victory and of martyrdom.
Yeah, it says jihad to victory or martyrdom. Like,
Interesting.
huh?
It also says Al Qassam on there.
And they're all
That's
very
nice.
well masked. They're all very well masked. But, like, you know, look, not everything was great about our past in terms of, you know, profiling individuals and making sure that they had enhanced sort of scrutiny by law enforcement. But it seems to me that jihad to victory or martyrdom might be one of those things that we want to check out.
It's like a tell. It's a very sly tell.
Yeah. It's like,
Very
we're going
sly.
to blow up your shit and kill ourselves because we're so angry about this. Maybe it's worth an extra cop.
No,
Yeah.
you can't
Ask 'em a question.
You can't peel them off of school board meetings. Law enforcement's way too busy.
Imagine marching with that. First of all, imagine marching with that in Lafayette Square in like 2005.
Yeah.
You'd be in Guantanamo.
You'd be extraordinary rendition. Enhanced interrogation technique would be applied.
There would be special speed of sound carriers that would take you right to Cuba.
We are 2 steps away from dudes riding around D.C. in Toyota Helixes,
Oh
shooting AK-47s into the air.
Do we have any that can drive stick, though?
No.
You know
no
what?
way.
That's the key to preventing a carjacking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Manual
probably,
transmission.
That's probably right. All right, clip 3. A little bit of more flavor for you. Smoke bombs. So this is outside of the White House.
Yeah, it's right in front of the
NBD,
White House.
guys.
I don't think it woke Biden up.
No, I think he was actually abroad during this.
Oh, right, Paris. That's right.
Again, it's like 2020. Well, they'll stand there and tell you with a straight face that this is fine. We don't need public condemnation of this.
No.
This is a beautiful display of free speech, and we should have no issue with it. When they were like setting the church on fire
Right.
across the
Yeah.
street
Right.
from the
Yeah.
White House,
Well, and
we're supposed to be fine with it.
a much bigger deal to them was when Trump held the Bible in front of that.
That was a bigger
Same.
deal than setting the church on fire.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I guarantee most of our listeners know of the Trump Bible thing, didn't know of the fire starting.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah,
that just tells you.
and that is literally a block away from where we're sitting right now.
Yes.
And that was done. And the reward was they shut down the street for 6 months and they put Black Lives Matter defund the police across 16th Street in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I mean, think about
And then rename the street.
rename the street. So like doing crime and doing terrorism apparently has a reward
Well, it pays.
in Washington D.C. So I just want to know which street we're going to rename after the terrorists.
Right.
Yeah,
You know?
this is where I find this to go slipping immediately sideways on the left. Let's get clip 4 out here. There is an effigy of a beheaded Joe Biden, an American flag set on fire.
And they're wearing Hamas bandanas.
They're wearing Hamas bandanas. Now,
Yeah, I dislike Joe Biden as much as an ex-Republican, but I mean, terrorists
he's
standing
a
out.
president of the United States, right? We don't support him politically, but he's a president of the United States. That's happening a block away from the White House, and nobody has a problem with that.
Well, they're not a conservative, so it's not like, you could press charges on them.
But guys, I
If
think
you were praying silently somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe
lock
we could
them
do
up.
something.
You're gone.
here's the thing. I think it goes beyond what we saw last Saturday in the city. We have had 20 million people walk through the southern border in this country over the last 4 years, thousands of whom come from countries that hate us. We're raised to hate us.
Yeah.
They are here to do us harm. As we've said before, they're not taking out applications for employment at Home Depot. They are looking for an opportunity when we aren't paying attention. You know there is going to be violence. You saw the story about the Chechens who all of a sudden happened to cross the American Special Forces home residence. You know that people like that are here to do us harm. And I think that every American needs to be ready for it. And I really hope that our law enforcement and I hope our security service is ready for it too.
But
because-
to Smug's point, they clearly aren't.
They're not.
Right?
They're not.
Like I mean, you turn on cable news and they talk about how conservative white men are the greatest terrorist
Yeah.
threat in the United States of America. You've got the FBI chasing down parents at PTA
Well,
meetings.
during a congressional hearing, the FBI director said that white nationalism is the greatest threat that America faces right
Yeah.
now. Okay.
Does it
Right.
look like it?
Yeah.
Does it look like
Like
that?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because, as you always say, like I am soft on terror.
Yes.
like I'm the soft on terror voice of the Ruthless Variety.
Yes, but you are
program.
now
But now, like
harder.
I feel like I want to start like a podcast with Dick Cheney and like extraordinarily rendition some people. And I don't think I've changed, but I think the world has changed and what we're willing to accept in this country has changed. Like that's the thing that feels weird. Like
They turned me into an immigration
It's
hawk. I
crazy.
used to be much squishier.
crazy.
It has changed. It has changed. And every single terrorist around the country watched what happened on October 7th. They learned that they don't need to take flying lessons to kill a bunch of people and capture the world's attention. They just need to find a group of people in a neighborhood who are not paying attention at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And I am telling you, it could get bad in our country because terrible, terrible people have walked across the border without anybody knowing.
I mean, the vast majority of people who cross the border are never even seen by border control agents, but hundreds of people on watch lists have been caught by border control agents. Think of how many have made it past.
You're
Well,
right.
It's just a numbers game at some point.
Yep.
There's so many
Right.
people coming over who are not vetted. And then there's a story from early May, of course, which is not a giant national story, where 2 Jordanian nationals
Yeah.
posed as Amazon truck drivers and tried to get onto Quantico.
mean-
And when pulled over to be further checked, decided they were going to try to barrel through.
Yep.
Now, one of those guys came over the border just a few days before that. Seems like that's a big deal.
You would think.
Seems like we have some vulnerabilities.
I mean, wake up, right? I mean, look
Wake
at
up.
20 years ago, 25 years ago, when we're on the brink of what ultimately was 9/11, if you'd have showed somebody that scene that we just watched, they would have been like, where the hell did that come from? That didn't exist in that America. The one where the largest terror attack in American history was launched and executed against us.
Yeah.
That was not something that you could prepare for.
Right. It would be like if the USS Cole bombing happened and then we had a rally in support of that bombing. And
Yes.
It's like, well, what was that battleship doing there?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, should have been here in the first place.
Yeah.
And here's the thing is, it's not like this is a problem that is going to be able to be handled or can be, fixed quickly, because you look across college campuses, there's an entire generation that supports these people.
Right.
I mean, I'm just like,
It's terrifying.
If the Cole bombing did happen now, they would say that on
Yeah,
college
that's
campuses.
what
They
I'm
would
saying.
just say,
Be like, well, why
hey,
was the
our
U.S.
im-
cold?
Our imperialism
How
seems
short,
to be a problem.
How short was the skirt on that battleship?
you
know?
it employed.
I mean,
women.
for real.
It employed women, for God's sakes. Women working in this day and age. Can you imagine? No, I mean, it literally is that, and like, I've got zero tolerance for any of this shit. Like, zero. I mean, my only critique of what Israel has done is that they didn't do all of it in the first 72 hours. That's my only critique. And I wish they would have done more than what we've seen to date in the first 72 hours. Because at that moment, and it should be a lesson to all world leaders, if you're going to experience something akin to a September 11th or an October 7th, you got 72 hours before everybody else organizes against you
that's right.
and tries to make a democracy undemocratic.
That's right.
It tries to just drown out what is right and just and the way to actually execute and protect your citizenry. Because right now, I mean, look, those 4 people, as you said, MK, they weren't going to be released. They had months of opportunities, negotiations, all of these things to be released. They weren't going to release them. They weren't. The only reason that they are breathing air today is because they went in and got them, and that's a bad thing. I don't get. They said 200 people lost their lives trying to stop IDF soldiers from getting in and freeing these people. Great, that's my take. Great.
Well, first of all, you can cut it by a factor of 10 with each of these numbers that comes out of.
But I don't have.
Hamas
I just don't have a problem with it. The thing is like, don't elect Hamas for starters. That would be a nice thing to not do. The second is, if you're serious about peace, then show it. Don't be the instigator of a terrorist attack and then be totally surprised when a country is willing to go to the mat to protect people. And by the way, there's still Americans here. There's still Americans that are held hostage.
You'd never know that if you read
never
the
know.
Washington Post.
Yeah.
Joe Biden was like, "Oh, we've rescued them. They're here. Wait, I'm now being told they are not."
It is truly amazing that he doesn't mention their names.
No,
Right.
They're just not at issue.
I mean, what happened? What happened to the days of? I mean, when I was
Lockerbie.
growing up,
Remember Iran? Remember Iran?
Yes.
Remember Iran when they took over the embassy, and that was a national news story. I mean, you read about it in history books about like every single day.
Yeah.
They were talking about those people, and we've sort of lost that.
Yep.
In our national consciousness, like Joe Biden is not asked every day what he is doing to get Americans back.
as if there's some kind of a justification for it, which is enabled by the fact that all of those people aren't on their way to Guantanamo.
Which goes back to my first point in this entire thing, and the entire thing is framed by the unsaid, and the unsaid is that these journalists believe that Israel does not have a right to exist.
Yes.
So all of the commentary is around that.
You're right. You're right. And it prompts our question for you all in the YouTube comments. You can comment on where you get your podcasts as well. We read all of them. We're going to get to a bunch of things that we talked about in last week in this show too, and we're going to put a little bit more meat on the bone in terms of how you can answer this question in the segments to come. But the question is the Hamas caucus going to cost Biden this election?
Good question.
It's a good
Boy,
question.
I sure hope so.
Because, I mean, they clearly have
They got a
deep
problem.
reservations about confronting insanity.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the question. Let's get to the one we asked last week, because I think this is so fun and illuminating. These guys, Wolf, you guys did a great job in coming up with this. But would you take the cognitive test if you were Joe Biden? So remember, the context of this was obviously we should talk every show about this guy's just losing his mind. And then there was a sort of dismissive response from the White House of like, physical, everything is great. Except for like all the polls show 70% of Americans that don't think he's going to make it through a second term. Most people don't think he's cognitively fit. It's clearly his biggest liability. So the question is like, you know, if they think he can pass it, why not just take it
and then
put
solve the
this
problem?
thing-
Put it to bed.
Put this thing to bed. So we've got some comments back from you guys that I think ultimately highlight this. Let's go to the voice number one, if we wouldn't mind.
Okay, this first one, and let me remind folks, we do love your comments, but if you want us to read them on the show, like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe if
That's
you
right.
wish to opine.
I love when he says that.
Okay, this first one is from Race Bannon 357, and Race Bannon writes, "There is no way Biden takes a cognitive test because one of two things will happen in the coming months. One, Biden holds it together in the upcoming debate and the left-wing media continues to cover for him, or two, Biden continues to spiral into that toilet and the Democrats replace him on the ticket. If Biden takes the test, it forces the Dems' hands one way or the other and gives them no options. But if Biden passes, they're stuck with him. If he fails, they have to replace him."
That's clever. That's game theory. That's clever.
It sounds like they've been listening to the program, too.
Race Bannon, 357.
All right,
Maybe that's
Dunks.
Steve Bannon.
You think he's writing in?
I think he's right now.
I've heard he's a huge fan.
This is from Lisa J, 5425. Love seeing Ben Shapiro join the fellas. In response to the question of the day, there is no way Biden takes that cognitive test unless he is tricked into doing it by the VP.
That's pretty good.
Very funny.
Good take. Parenthetical here. She tells him there's ice cream or something at the end.
chocolate chip.
A pudding.
That's
Some
actually
kind of a
super
pudding.
smart.
Yeah.
Super smart. A little rocky road at the end of the test might get him to take it. Or he's going to pardon Hunter and just burn it all down. There is no way he willingly submits to that when he's in his right mind, which is less and less often these days, obviously.
It
I
is
think
obvious.
that's right. That is a good take. Smug, what do we got?
So this comment is from George McKenzie 473. Fellas, I would prefer to take a different tack on your question of Joe Biden and cognitive testing. Rather than answer if I would take such a test, I would offer a hypothesis on what is probably going on in the decision-making circle. I assume that Joe Biden, the guy who wants to fight everyone, himself wants to take a cognitive test. His cognitive impairment makes him unable to realize that he wouldn't be able to pass such a test.
That's such a good
This
take.
is good. However, his handlers know he can't take a test and won't allow it. First of all, clearly he will fail it, and that will imperil his candidacy. But more importantly, it will force a 25th Amendment issue. Ooh, that's right. Irony of ironies, that would create a President Harris. Talk about a rock and a hard place. The only way they will let him take the test is perhaps when they want to replace him as the Democratic candidate. That's for all you do.
Oh, my gosh. That's fantastic.
Such a great point.
That
I would
was
have thought
smart.
Yeah, I would have
Smart.
thought him pooping his pants next to Macron last week would have forced a 25th Amendment issue, but far be it from me.
Well, we've
25th Amendment is for Republicans.
That's right.
That's how it works.
That's right.
That is right.
Great
MJ.
point.
The small print.
Yeah. I love that. But let's put a little bit finer point on this issue of the Hamas caucus, because, look, if you're not involved in politics and you look at this stuff, you think it's completely insane.
Yeah.
The idea that an American president is somehow skewing what is broadly understood by an American electorate, that there may be two sides to this conflict, but there's certainly not morally two sides to Hamas and Israel and what has happened here. And why you keep triangulating? Well, the answer is the poll numbers. And the answer is this Hamas base that this guy's got that ain't happy, right? So this is from Axios. What they're trying to do is sort of work through the conviction piece. Because the theory all along was that somehow Donald Trump would be convicted, called a felon, and it would be a game changer. And the 33% approval rating for Joe Biden, notwithstanding, would not be a hindrance to a 51% nationwide support. Multiple polls in swing states had shown former President Trump heading for a clean sweep, but there's early evidence that the race has tightened after Trump's 34 convictions in his hush money trial. 5 national polls conducted after the former president's conviction showed the race either unchanged or moving slightly in Biden's direction. I want to stop here because, look, for those of you who have not heard, I haven't done a ton of this on Ruthless, but I do a ton of it on Fox, which is polls were never meant to be a media tool. They're a tool, an industry tool for marketing purposes, for political purposes, where there's an understanding of what polls show. You watch trend lines over time. You watch cross tabs of demographics and how they've changed over multiple polls of thousands of person samples and things like that. What you don't do is take a poll 1 month, have it move 1 point, which the margin of error of these things are like 4.5, 4 to 4.5. It moves 1 point, and then your headline is,
Aha.
something's afoot. There's a shift that we must be wary of.
And of all the hundreds of factors that could affect this, we think it's the one we're writing this story.
It's incredible. I mean, none of this shit has changed a lick. Not a lick. Everything is exactly the same as it was before New York. It's like 1 point up or 1 point. It's either unchanged, meaning like there's no material difference, or it's changed, meaning there's no material difference. It's all inside the margin of error. Whatever Democrats were hoping was going to happen didn't happen, and the Hamas caucus is still a problem for this too.
I think that's the takeaway, is if they wanted to view these poll numbers through the prism of how did Trump's conviction affect these numbers, I think you see it in, that was the plan of the Democrats. They thought, step 1, convict Trump. Step 2, it's just, I don't know, question marks. Step 3, profit. They thought that was it. They thought that was it. Yeah, and what ends up happening is they don't get that move. They were hoping this was like landslide. They're like, all we got to do is just convict this guy, keep throwing shit. All we got to do is convict it, and that's it. We win. And that has not materialized. So the theory of their case has failed. That's the takeaway from this polling.
Well, it's worth noting that a lot of people go into journalism, myself included, because they're not great at math. So just proceed with caution when you're looking at the poll watching. Look, I'm willing to believe that there are like suburban mom demo voters who hear felon enough times and go like, I don't know, it's just a bridge too far for me, right? I can see that being
well, it
part of
reignites
the
a
case.
previous hesitation that we saw manifest itself in 2020.
I think that could be real. However, I think, as you say, they wanted this to be a 10-point swing.
Right.
Right? If not more. Like, haha, like Coyote and Roadrunner, we finally did it. We finally did it. Beep, beep. We finally did it. And it didn't work out that way. The other thing I think is weird about Biden is that twice now he's stomped on the story of the conviction with big news stories that he controlled. The speech he gave about this fake Israel deal with Hamas that he was trying to make that came to nothing because it was nothing. And 2, the border stuff that he announced. It's like, just let it rest for a minute. Because the news cycle is going so quickly. I think people are like, oh, yeah, he was convicted, wasn't he?
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a good point.
I think it's part of the rollout, right? I mean, I think that they were trying to staunch the bleeding on a couple of different things. One is there is real bleeding on the left, and 2 is the center of the electorate that has been super animated by immigration. And their running theory was that there was going to be a natural shift over a felony conviction. But if you stomp all those things together and you put them in the same time frame and you see fundamentally different changes, then you'd be like, well, it's because of the good policy that we've been coming up with. It's not all out of our control.
I mean, they'd have to come up with some good policy, but yes.
Right? Yeah. No, I mean, it's all, nothing they're doing is actually meaningful. It's all just PR bullshit.
That's right.
But the larger piece of this is they're hinging this Biden gain on a national New York Times Siena College poll where Trump moved from +3 to +1. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to tell you how much that angers me. Like, I don't, and this is a little artistry. Granted, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
But when you spend enough time in a profession and you take some pride in the craft, and like I've always complained that professional sports and politics are the only 2 things where the fans of the game think they can do it better than the actual participants. But this is a perfect example of it, where you're talking about a 800-person sample nationwide, extrapolating out something inside the margin of error and throwing a headline on it that it's a shift in public opinion. It's not. Anyway, like,
well, they're trying to create the shift.
That's right.
Right.
And
That's right. Exactly.
I guess that's my larger point.
Which is a service they provide to Democrats. And, something that I would just add to what Holmes is saying, because I know exactly what he's talking about, because I've also been on the phone with reporters when we've had shifts in polling in our Senate races and whatever, and we're like, hey, there's movement here on the ballot. We really think our candidate has some momentum, and every single reporter is like, it's inside the margin, right? I don't think my editor would ever approve something like that. Let's just keep talking.
What's the methodology? I'm not sure we can take the methodology. We've created methodology within our own editorial department that actually excludes anything that's good for you.
Exactly. And in the case of Democrats, their press secretary doesn't even need to call. They're just like manna from heaven. An editor assigns a reporter a headline that says Democrats on the rise.
Yeah, well, there's no closer hand in glove operation in PR than Democratic pollsters and the media when they need to put up a shock poll. Remember, shock poll?
Oh, yeah, the old PPP.
Yeah, where Democrats would be losing a race by 10 to 12 points all summer, and then suddenly in early September, a shock poll comes out from Data for Progress or PPP.
Happens to coincide with a fundraising deadline.
And then the media gets to write about how, Jamie Harrison's really going to win this election in South Carolina. And Amy McGrath is nipping on Mitch McConnell's heels. They get fucking blown out by 15 points.
Right, exactly.
2 months later. I mean, that's how the whole thing operates, and this is no different. It's a media poll; it serves the exact same purpose. And
The Washington Post calls polling consensus little but pretty evident shift.
Oh,
pretty evident.
Pretty evident.
Pretty evident.
National poll, an N of what? 600, 800 people, and they're like, yeah. And nowhere in here has Biden consolidated any of his fractured base, and his approval is the lowest it's ever been. But they're going to go ahead and tell you that this is how Joe Biden wins. That's insane.
Well, they want to talk about these bullshit numbers because they can't talk about these numbers right here.
Yeah, they can't talk about the numbers at the bottom. If we can get graphic 2 up.
Yeah, they're little and pretty evident.
So
that's what they are.
Yeah.
That's the polling for our audio-only listeners. This is a graphic that shows sort of a heat map of where the approve-disapprove of Joe Biden's job approval has gone over a series of, it looks like this is a 3-year span. And this is an open mouth of problems for them. I mean, the disapprove is now at almost 57%. Approval's at 30. He's an incumbent president running for re-election. If you were looking at that inside of Democratic National Committee headquarters, that would scare the shit out of you.
Again, for our audio-only listeners, the approval rating for Biden basically looks like a Boeing plane trying to land. I mean,
It's
that
at
is
37.4.
People are screaming on the plane.
Door off.
The door's gone.
Yeah. Cabin depressurized.
Yeah.
Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up.
The disapprove is more like a SpaceX line.
Yeah, that one's just rocketing. I mean, when you see the difference over time, and now how rapid the movement has become is my takeaway. So this chart begins at the start of his presidency, January 2021. But look at the movement from January 1st, 2023 to today. It is moving rapidly. That gap between the people who disapprove at current 57% and the people who approve all the way down at 37%, that gap's getting wider and wider and wider by the day.
The very beginning shows you that people wanted it to work.
Yeah.
They thought this guy is going to bring some sort of civility back to Washington. He's going to make it normal again.
Yeah, they wanted it.
And
It
then
took
you
2
see,
months, and that just was a nosedive.
well, you see where the inflection point is the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I mean, that's
That
it.
looks exactly like September, dude. You're right.
Right, and we talked about that at the time. And we're like, here is the inflection point. He's never going to recover, because it revealed to people that their hope was misplaced.
Yes.
That this guy wasn't the steady hand that's going to get us out of COVID and the
Dude, you're right.
riots and
100%
whatever,
right.
and because that's what they voted for. This wasn't a mandate that Joe Biden's a fucking great guy and we're on board with his agenda. It was they wanted a steady hand on the wheel. And when the fucking wheels came off in Afghanistan, people were falling off airplanes and were leaving Humvees for terrorists, and Marines were getting blown up.
So we could do a press conference on the 20th anniversary of September 11th.
It revealed that this guy does not have a hand on the wheel, and he's never recovered since.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
MK, your thoughts on this?
I mean, that graph looks like I got 4 kids. That's my numbers at bedtime.
Yeah.
I could disapprove. The disapprove is just skyrocketing.
Mom approval rating.
We're up to 85% disapprove. No, I think this leads to a bit to my theory on sort of liberal governance in all domestically and foreign, which is it's like the gentle parenting of governance, where it's like somebody's got to pay a price for something.
Yeah.
Or if you incentivize this behavior, it keeps happening. Apologies to anyone in the audience who is a gentle parent. I feel like there probably aren't too many in the Ruthless podcast audience.
So gentle.
I'm not going to give it a lot of nuance, but look, if there are no consequences for actions you don't want to see, then you get more of those actions.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
America doesn't want to see the things that Biden is unwilling to take action on.
Mm-hmm.
That's 100% right.
Oh, well said. Very well said. All right. We want to thank one of our sponsors here, Lumen. And Smug, listen, you turned us on to this situation. This is a good product.
Yeah, there's a lot of research backing up Lumen. They are a device that basically measures your metabolism first thing in the morning. It takes literally 30 seconds. You just turn it on, you breathe in the thing, and it connects to your phone and tells you exactly what's going on. It tells you if you're burning fats. It tells you if you're burning carbs. It asks you, okay, when did you last have a meal the night before? And off of all that data, it tells you when you should eat, what to do during the day. It's like another decision is now taken off your plate that you don't have to worry about.
And I'll tell you, anybody who is a little bit worried about, I can't add something else to my life. How am I going to do it? It takes less than a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even need to think about it. You just set it on like the counter next to your bathroom sink, and in the morning, just it takes you less than a minute, and you get information every single day.
And I don't know if you did this on purpose, but that was an incredible pun. And if that's not part of their marketing materials, it should be. That's a decision off your plate.
Yeah, there you go.
Decision off your plate.
I mean, it was 100% intentional.
Lumen, if you are watching this right now, hire us to not only talk about your product, but then also maybe do some of the marketing, because that was fantastic.
And that's the thing, is because it actually works. And I hate these devices. It's like, is it going to pair with the Bluetooth on my phone? It's like another damn device that's going to give me a hard time. The first time I plugged this thing in, it worked, and every time I've used it since, it worked. That alone made me happy.
Well, you like tracking this stuff.
Yeah,
like you used to do all kinds of
All
stuff.
that- I
We used to
started
make
Whoop.
fun of you.
I got a Whoop
Yep.
band, I got an Oura, and now Lumen's added to the mix.
Hell yeah.
But now this thing is like it's taken over.
Yeah, well,
Let
use
me-
it too. It's great.
Let me tell you, I don't have a Whoop band. I don't have an Aura, and there's a reason I don't have all that stuff. I just am not interested in that. Lumen is worth your time.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's another thing, is you don't have to wear it during the day or anything. Just first thing in the morning, just knock it out.
So if you want to take the next step in improving health, go to lumen.me and use Ruthless to get $100 off your Lumen. That's lumen.com. Or .me, I'm sorry. See, I fuck that up every time. I'm sorry, Lumen. It's lumen.me. And use Ruthless at the checkout for $100 off. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. All right. So, fellas, you want some variety?
Yes.
Always.
Desperately.
I think we need some variety. MK, you love the variety in the variety
I
program.
do. I love to talk about stuff that's not politics.
So this thing, I'm not sure how I completely conceptualize what they're doing, but I've heard enough anecdotally where I think it's real. This is in the New York Times, which typically I'm pretty skeptical of, but in this case, feels right. Is your driving being secretly scored?
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so here, let me read a couple of things and just give you a little stimulus for thought here. You know you have a credit score. Did you know that you might also have a driver score? The score reflects safety of your driving habits and how often you slam on the brakes, speed, or look at your phone, or drive late at night. While you can see your credit score, you'll have a harder time finding out what your driving score is. But auto insurance companies can get it. And that could affect the rate that you pay for insurance. The last 2 decades, auto insurers have been trying to get people to enroll in programs commonly called usage-based insurance plans that monitor their day-to-day driving so rates can actually reflect your risk. Not surprisingly, privacy-minded consumers have been reluctant to sign up.
Oh, do they have an issue with that? Yes.
So the
Seems
industry
like a red flag.
industry is taking a different tack, getting data about how people drive from automakers or from apps that drivers have already.
So
on
that,
their phones.
to me, that's the disturbing part about this, because
That's the turn.
yeah, like for years, I think Nationwide or other places had like, you just plug this into your car.
But like opt in to the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is way more insidious.
Yeah.
I read this article. Do you know what kind of stuff is tracking you? It's not like, the insurance app that I have on my phone. Gas Buddy. The app that people use to find cheap gas, that's selling it. That's selling the information.
You're telling me I
on
need like a fucking Faraday cage when I go into my car now?
I would
Pretty
not
much.
blame you if you did.
Oh, my
Gas
God.
Buddy is snitching you out.
Dude, I mean,
My radar that people use for weather, that's snitching you out.
Experts say people have no idea the insurance industry can track them this way.
No, they do not.
No.
They did not know that. Although, check out that parallel parking I pulled off downstairs.
Hell yeah.
Insurance company.
Yeah, girl.
As long as you're spying, I might as well get credit.
After the New York Times revealed that General Motors was sharing driving behavior with LexisNexis, when the hell did the legal thing become a spy app for my driving?
Yeah, all these bastards are in it.
I thought that was for term papers.
This is when you're doing a term paper in the car. They do frown upon that.
Customers filed dozens of lawsuits, and the car maker ended its contract with that particular data broker. But data is still being collected from automakers, and it's still being collected from the apps. Driving behavior analysis, or telematics, as the insurance industry calls it, could be better for consumers, leading to personalized rates that are more fair, or super unfair, depending upon...
Bullshit. I'm not giving you anything. Like, the hell with these people. Like, the idea that, listen, it's okay, we're just going to spy on you a little.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you're not. I'm not going to do any of that shit.
But isn't end result, like, look, we understand that if you drive and you're getting crashes all the time, like, your insurance rate is going to reflect that. Mm-hmm. Your driving behavior, if it never results in any sort of cost to the insurance company, do we really care? It's just like risk of, because I'll be honest, I'll drive fast and I'll hit some brakes, and we like to do the merge thing. People don't care for, but we do it because we're in a hurry and everybody else seems to not be.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make me more dangerous. I think it means that we're controlling the road. The other cars look to you for leadership.
Well,
They certainly
okay, yeah,
do.
sure. Yeah.
They certainly do.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not defending the insurance company, but looking at the numbers in aggregate, insurance is a game of risk.
Yes.
And that behavior might be risky. But I would merely suggest that risk is also determined by your environment. If you drive around Washington, D.C., it's like fucking Mad Max. Like, if you aren't driving aggressively, then you are in more danger of dying.
more danger.
Way more danger.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's factored in here to the old algorithm.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Exactly.
If you're speeding and you're merging and you're doing, I'm doing the things to keep myself safe.
Yeah.
It's like you're speeding in DC so you don't get carjacked, all right?
Well, yeah, that too.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, you're
So
saying okay?
the argument for it would be, okay, this is like meritocratic and it's giving you a benefit for the fact that you drive safely. I don't trust them to do that to begin with. But on the other hand, all the people who are really unsafe drivers are just going to be live streaming on social media while they're driving. So just take that pile out, give them higher rates, and
Yes.
the rest of us will be safe.
There we go.
Fair enough.
Yeah, China uses TikTok for, like, social scores.
Well, there's
Just
No,
laws-
it's
do
just
the
like
next
it's just like non-binary somebody is like doing a vlog in the car live while driving. That's
Adjust
just-
their insurance
adjust it.
rates accordingly.
adjust it. But there is
That's
the
a
last thing
lawsuit
I'll
waiting to
say.
happen. Sorry.
The last thing I'll say on this. Did you guys know there's long been a gender discrimination in car insurance?
I do.
Really?
Long.
There
been.
has been. I know
know
this. I know this, and I knew this from the
Men-
time I was 16 years old.
Men pay substantially higher rates than women do because of aggressive driving and just sort of assumptions built into that. Well, we all know this.
It's crazy because women can't drive.
Right on cue.
Let me just do it for you.
We're all waiting, like, who's going to do it?
Let me just do it.
Who's stepping up to it, fellas?
Who will have the courage?
To do the right thing. Let me just say, I am quite a good driver. And I'm a good driver because my dad taught me to drive on a 68 Volkswagen Bug.
Oh,
There you go.
And if you can drive a stick shift on a 68 Volkswagen Bug, you are good to go. That clutch was like as long as my torso. Good luck on a hill. And I'm sorry, ladies, for making the obvious dumb joke.
Yeah.
Don't cancel me.
You're just getting going.
It just has to happen.
You can't be canceled now.
You can't be canceled. All right, so second bit of variety. Enhanced Games Smug.
Yes, the greatest sporting event mankind has
You'll
devised.
recall that the Enhanced Games are a game that has been come up with by a consortium of people that basically encourage the use of banned substances in athletic competition like the Olympics or
Yeah.
professional.
This is the Olympics for doping, basically.
Yeah, so if you can like fill yourself.
For enhancement. I don't like the use of the term doping.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, you don't care for
This
care
is
for
this
that.
is just humans improving.
Science.
Yeah.
Trust the science.
Yeah. Trust. But here's the thing is,
He couldn't go there. I was waiting for it.
I can't agree with trusting science. Okay.
I tried to lead him in.
I will let, performance enhancing drugs speak for themselves. I think that's fair. If these enhanced games have doctors on site monitoring everybody, so let's see what they can do. If you take away the barriers, what is a person capable of?
I think that's wise, and you've weighed in now not once but twice on this, but we have an update.
Yeah.
Which is worth covering.
Okay.
Suspended American distance swimmer Kenzie McMahon has been offered entry to the enhanced games following news of her 4-year competition ban that came down on Tuesday. The enhanced games, a controversial multi-sport event, won't subject athletes at all to drug testing. And it was sent out the post Wednesday morning inviting McMahon to compete. She's a 24-year-old, received a 4-year suspension from the United States Anti-Doping Agency. That's the USADA thing. After she tested positive for a banned substance, vadadustat. I mean, they're getting really complicated on the stuff that they're like. It used to be the clear and the cream, right? A little steroid action. Now we got V's and D's and A's. I mean, there's just consonants everywhere in the shit that they're throwing in there. Anyway, she's super good, as it turns out. She came in third in the women's 1500 free, a personal best time. This is a substance that there's hormones and growth factors and all kinds of different stuff. Anyway, they're all over it. They want her to compete. Good thing.
Yeah.
And so here's another example of the injustice, right? So this substance that she took wasn't approved for medical use in the U.S. until March 2024, 8 months after her positive test. So it's okay to use, just not at the time the forms are being filled. And now her career's derailed on this bullshit.
Right.
She could have used a Wizinator, to be frank with you.
Then they absolutely would not.
It is the
would not ban
21st
her.
century.
Yeah.
This day and age, that would not be frowned upon. In fact, looking upon the Wizinator would be an
hate
issue.
crime.
Gazing upon it.
Yeah.
MK, do we have a thought on the enhanced games?
Yeah, the Cheaters Olympics.
It's not cheating.
No, I'm not that mad about it because it's labeled as such.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Perfect place for Pete Rose.
Come on.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I can't believe you
He'll
pulled
never
it.
get in the Hall of Fame. He's the cheater. He cheated. This is enhanced.
They just pulled the scab off
Sorry,
the
I
wound.
couldn't
How's he
help
not in
myself.
jail?
I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry.
I will prefer the non-cheater games, but
Yeah.
Okay.
for those who are looking for something else,
But it's pretty interesting, right? I mean,
yeah. Like
what
what can we do?
yeah, what if they blow
what
away
can we cook up?
all of the records? Because, clearly you don't get into the enhanced games if you are naturally winning gold medals.
No, but why
Well,
not?
you know what?
better?
It might pull some of the biological males out of the women's competitions. And
put 'em back into the-
Yeah, let's put them in the bigger pool.
They just
again,
got to get
so to
sauced up
speak.
with something other
Yes.
than something.
Other
that-
than just testosterone, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or something that takes their peen away.
This-
Which, I don't know what that is, but it's probably got consonants and V's and A's and D's in it.
This line was amazing. So it
Or
says,
no D's, I guess.
It says, retired Australian freestyler James Magnuson, a 3-time world champion and 3-time Olympic medalist, see, he's already a winner, has largely been the public face of the enhanced games. In February, he said he would, quote, juice to the gills at the event to try and break the world record.
That's cool. That's kind of cool.
See, that's what that's what it's about.
I've
That's a
changed.
champion.
That's the only.
That's what it's about.
That's the only.
Juice to the gills, bro. Who doesn't want to see that?
I've got a theory. I've got a theory on this. Okay. I think this is very interesting for entertainment purposes, but this could be the precursor to a great program at the Pentagon for creating super soldiers,
Yeah.
and that we have the enhanced games as a way of testing out
What can we do to the human body?
what can we do to the human body.
Yeah.
And then it's we get Navy SEALs jacked to the gills on HGH.
Jack to the gills.
Jack to the gills, dude.
And it's fucking Abbottabad would have been done in a third of the time.
Yeah. They just jump on the roof.
Yeah.
Bin Laden thinks it's Santa. No.
And Bin Laden's up there and he's like, holy shit, it's the Incredible Hulk.
Guy just does a triple jump from the Pakistani border and ends up on the roof in a bag. Holy cats. Well, listen, we're going to follow this thing. It's next year, right?
Yep.
a year from now,
We're going to cover it 100%.
the countdown begins.
Yeah.
They'd be wise to get us involved in that.
No, it sounds like a job for Ruthless on their commentary, for sure.
Wants to get us involved in this. All right, just remember, before we get out of here, you've got a question that you need to answer based on what we've just discussed. Is the Hamas caucus going to cost Biden this election? Are they going to do it? I don't know. We're going to find out. I'd be fascinated. We always learn something from your commentary because you're living in these places and you can see Democrats not getting on board for, terrorist sympathies or whatever, what have you. We'd like to know that. So get on with that. MK. Turns out you got a new gig.
I got a new job.
Look
I am
at
at
you.
Fox News as a Fox News contributor.
Yes,
Wonderful.
girl.
Yes,
Awesome.
I'm excited to be back on the
Yes.
team at
Yes.
Fox News. I left in 2015, and it's sort of a homecoming for me.
That's
Yeah.
excellent.
I grew up on that little channel
You
just-
did?
as a young lady.
I just really wish we wouldn't get a flag from YouTube and we could put on some Steve Winwood right now and play Back in the High Life again.
Yeah.
Because if we weren't on YouTube, I'd be singing it right now. But then I don't want to.
I don't think your singing is enough.
Back in the high life again.
There you go.
All these doors that once were closed are opened up again. I'm just doing that for you.
I think that's what the Fox News press shop envisioned for this moment.
That is the kind of announcement
know
they were
I
looking
did.
for. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're better than Winwood, old man.
Thank you. Thank you.
I thought so too, and I think maybe it doesn't quite trigger the algorithm.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Wolf, are we okay?
Was it too similar? Is he too good?
Okay.
It was
thank you.
pretty good.
They're
We'll
gonna
keep an eye on.
They're gonna think it was like
They were thinking it was Steve
Pavarotti-
Winwood.
No, a Pavarotti cover.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. Also rights we do not have.
Yeah.
No question about it. Thank you for coming in here.
Thank you. I will be there, and I still have my podcast, Getting Hammered, which is a nice compliment to
Yeah.
you guys.
It is.
I would wager.
It's a wonderful listen. For those of you who haven't checked it out, Getting Hammered, great spot anywhere you get your podcast. You're over at Ruthless, go over there too.
Yeah.
And hammer that. I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Fellas and lady, thanks again for MK Hammer. Folks, check out her podcast, Getting Hammered. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.